everyone, welcome. Wuthering Heights, Cloudhouse Cafe, chapter 19, apple pie, cappuccino, etc. How are you doing? Lovely. It's a nice big bit of apple pie this week. Look at that. Look at the size of that. I will get to the reading in a second. Don't worry. Now I've got to show you this. I've got to show you the cream being poured on. What's nice and warm too. Oh. It's not pouring very well, is it? Dare I look at it? Yes. My dare. I know that's why some of you are here. It's nice. Delicious. Right, so last time, chapter 18, young Catherine got into a bit of an argument about her genetics, her lineage, shall we say, and who is and isn't related to her. A letter, edged with black, announced the day of my master's return. Isabella was dead, and he wrote me to get mourning for his daughter, and to arrange a room and other accommodations for his youthful nephew. Catherine ran wild with joy at the idea of welcoming her father back, and indulged most sanguine anticipations of the innumerate excellences of her real cousin. The evening of their expected arrival came. Since early morning she had been busy ordering her own small affairs, and now attired in her new black frock, poor thing, her aunt's death impressed her with no definite sorrow. She obliged me by constant worrying to walk with her down through the grounds to meet them. Linton is just 6 months younger than I am, she chattered as we strolled leisurely over the swells and hollows of mossy turf under the shadow of trees. How delightful it will be to have him for a playfellow. Aunt Isabella sent Papa a beautiful lock of his hair. It was lighter than mine, more flaxen and quite as fine. I have it carefully preserved in a little glass box, and I've often thought what pleasure it would be to see its owner. Oh, I am happy, and dear Papa, come Ellen, let us run, come run. She ran, and returned and ran again, many times before my sober footsteps reached the gate, and then she seated herself on the grassy bank beside the path, and tried to wait patiently, but that was impossible. She couldn't be still a minute. How long they are, she exclaimed. Ah, I see some dust on the road. They're coming. No. Oh, when will they be here? May we not go a little way? Half a mile, Ellen. Only just half a mile. Oh, do say yes, to that clump of birches at the turn. I refused staunchly, and at length her suspense was ended. The travelling carriage rolled in sight. Miss Cathy shrieked and stretched out her arms as soon as she caught her father's face leaning from the window. He descended, nearly as eager as herself, and a considerable interval elapsed ere they had a thought to spare for any but themselves. What a strange squealing sound. Can you hear it occasionally? It's not me. It's not me squealing, promise. There. Do you hear that? Sounds as if it's somebody's hearing aid feeding back. I don't know. It's not mine. My hearing aid's alright, I think. While they exchanged caresses, I took a peep in after to see Linton. He was asleep in a corner, wrapped in a warm, fur-lined cloak as if it had been winter. A pale, delicate, effeminate boy who might have been taken for my master's younger brother, so strong was the resemblance, but there was a sickly peevishness in his aspect that Edgar Linton never had. The latter saw me looking, and having shaken hands, advised me to close the door and leave him undisturbed, for the journey had fatigued him. Cathy would fain have taken one glance, but her father told her to come on, and they walked together up the park while I hastened before to prepare the servants. Now, darling, said Mr. Linton, addressing his daughter as they halted at the bottom of the front steps, Your cousin is not so strong or so merry as you are, and he has lost his mother, remember, a very short time since. Therefore, don't expect him to play and run about with you directly, and don't harass him much by talking. Let him be quiet this evening at least, will you?" "Yes, Papa," answered Catherine, "but I do want to see him, and he hasn't once looked out." The carriage stopped, and the sleeper, being roused, was lifted to the ground by his uncle. "I need some more pie. I need more pie. I'm hungry for apple pie." That's a good one. A bit more cream. That's good. That's nice. Delicious. "This is your cousin, Cathy, Linton," he said, putting the little hands together. "She's fond of you all right, already, and mind you don't grieve her by crying tonight. Try to be cheerful now. The travelling's at an end, and you have nothing to do but rest and amuse yourself as you please." "Let me go to bed, then," answered the boy, shrinking from Catherine's salute, and he put his fingers to his eyes to remove incipient tears. "Oh, come, there's a good child," I whispered, leading him in. "You'll make her weep too. See how sorry she is for you." I do not know whether it was sorrow for him, but his cousin put on as sad a countenance as himself and returned to her father. All three entered and mounted to the library where tea was laid ready. I proceeded to remove Linton's cap and mantle and placed him on a chair by the table, but he was no sooner seated than he began to cry afresh. My master inquired what was the matter. "I can't sit on a chair," sobbed the boy. "Go to the sofa then, and Ellen shall bring some tea," answered his uncle patiently. He had been greatly tried during the journey, I felt convinced, by his fretful, ailing charge. Linton slowly trailed himself off and lay down. Catherine carried a footstool and cup to his side. At first he sat silent, but that could not last, and had resolved to make a pet of her little cousin, as she would have had him to be, and she commenced stroking his curls and kissing his cheek and offering him tea in her saucer like a baby. Oh, this pleased him, for he was not much better. He dried his eyes and lightened into a faint smile. "Oh, he'll do very well," said the master to me, after watching them a minute. "Very well, if we can keep him, Ellen. The company of a child of his own age will instill new spirit into him soon, and by wishing for strength he'll gain it." "Aye, if we can keep him," I mused to myself, and sore misgivings come over me that there was slight hope of that. And then, I thought, however will that weakling live at Wuthering Heights between his father and Hareton? What playmates and instructors they'll be! Our doubts were presently decided. Even earlier than I expected, I had just taken the... I'll read that again. Our doubts were presently decided, even earlier than I had expected. I had just taken the children upstairs after tea was finished, and had seen Linton asleep. He would not suffer me to leave him till that was the case. I came down, and was standing by the table in the hall, lighting a bedroom candle for Mr. Edgar, when a maid appeared out of the kitchen and informed me that Mr. Heathcliff's servant, Joseph, was at the door, and wished to speak with the master. "I shall ask him first what he wants," I said, in considerable trepidation. "A very unlikely hour to be troubling people, and the instant they have returned from a long journey, I don't think the master can see him." Joseph had advanced through the kitchen as I uttered these words, and now presented himself in the hall. He was donned in his Sunday garments, with his most sanctimonious and sourest face, and holding his hat in one hand and his stick in the other, he proceeded to clean his shoes on the mat. "Good evening, Joseph," I said coldly. "What business brings you here tonight?" "It's Maister Linton. I maun speak till, I think it says till. It's kind of not printed very well. Yeah. "It's Maister Linton. I maun speak till," he answered, waving me disdainfully aside. "Mr. Linton is going to bed. Unless you have something particular to say, I'm sure he won't hear it now," I continued. "You had better sit down in there and trust your message to me." "Which is his ram?" pursued the fellow, surveying the range of closed doors. I perceived he was bent on refusing my mediation, so very reluctantly I went up to the library and announced the unreasonable visitor. his unseasonable visitor, advising that he should be dismissed till next day. Mr. Linton had no time to empower me to do so, for he mounted close at my heels and, pushing into the apartment, planted himself at the far side of the table, with his 2 fists clamped on the head of his stick, and began in an elevated tone, as if anticipating our opposition. "Heathcliff has set before his lad, and I want to go back about him." Edgar Linton was silent a minute. An expression of exceeding sorrow overcast his features. He would have pitied the child on his own account, but recalling Isabella's hopes and fears and anxious wishes for his son, and his commendations of him to his care, he grieved bitterly at the prospect of yielding him up, and searched in his heart how it might be avoided. No plan offered itself. The very exhibition of any desire to keep him would have rendered his claimant more peremptory. There was nothing left but to resign him. However, he was not going to rouse him from his sleep. Heathcliff's come for Linton. More pie. More apple pie, everyone. Look at that. Looks delicious, doesn't it? Fresh out the oven. Lovely. "Tell Mr. Heathcliff," he answered calmly, "that his son shall come to Wuthering Heights tomorrow. He is in bed, and too tired to go any distance now. You may tell him that the mother of Linton desired him to remain under my guardianship, and, at present, his health is very precarious." "No," said Joseph, giving a thud with his prop on the floor, and assuming an authoritative air. "No, that means nowt. Heathcliff makes no account of the mother, nor yon northerner, but he'll have his lad, and I maun tak him. So now you know." "You shall not tonight," answered Linton decisively. "Walk downstairs at once and repeat to your master what I have said. Ellen, show him down. Go." And aiding the indignant elder with a lift of the arm, he rid the room of him and closed the door. "Very well," shouted Joseph as he slowly drew off. "To morn he'll come himself and thrust him out if you dare." End of chapter 19. It's a short chapter. I think we'll just continue on with 20. This is just a short chapter. So no sooner has Linton arrived, and what a boy he is as well, as he's off, theoretically, at the moment he's off to Heathcliff for no good purpose, I'm sure. Nice. I'm going to pour some more cream on it. In a minute. Chapter 20. I think this is quite a short chapter as well. Chapter 20. To obviate the danger of this threat being fulfilled, Mr. Linton commissioned me to take the boy home early on Catherine's pony, and said he, As we shall now have no influence over his destiny, good or bad, you must say nothing of where he is gone to my daughter. She cannot associate with him hereafter, and it is better for her to remain in ignorance of his proximity, lest she should be restless and anxious to visit the Heights. Merely tell her his father sent for him suddenly, and he has been obliged to leave us. Linton was very reluctant to be roused from his bed at 5 o'clock. 5 I can't say I blame him. And astonished to be informed that he must prepare for further travelling. But I softened off the matter by stating that he was going to spend some time with his father, Mr. Heathcliff, who wished to see him so much. I did not like to defer the pleasure till he should be recovered from his late journey. "My father!" he cried in strange perplexity. "Mamma never told me I had a father. Where does he live? I'd rather stay with Uncle." "He lives a little distance from the Grange," I replied, "just beyond those hills. Not so far, but you may walk over there when you get hearty." and you should be glad to go home and to see him. You must try to love him, as did your mother, and then he will love you." "But why have I not heard of him before?" asked Linton. "Why didn't Mamma and he live together as other people do?" "He had business to keep him in the north," I answered, "and your mother's health required her to reside in the south." "And why didn't... yeah, I suppose that's true, isn't it? And why didn't Mamma speak to me about him?" persevered the child. "She often talked of Uncle, and I learned to love him long ago. How am I to love Papa? I don't know him." "Oh, all children love their parents," I said. "Your mother, perhaps, thought you would want to be with him if she mentioned him often to you. Let us make haste, and an early ride on such a beautiful morning is much preferable to an hour's more sleep." "Is she to go with us?" he demanded. "The little girl I saw yesterday?" "Not now," replied I. "Is Uncle?" he continued. "No, I shall be your companion there," I said. Linton sank back onto his pillow and fell into a brown study. "I won't go without Uncle," he cried at length, "and I can't tell where you mean to take me." I attempted to persuade him of the naughtiness of showing reluctance to meet his father. Still, he obstinately resisted any progress towards dressing, and I had to call for my master's assistance in coaxing him out of bed. The poor thing was finally got off with several delusive assurances that his absence should be short, that Mr. Edgar and Cathy would visit him, and other promises equally ill-founded, which I invented and reiterated at intervals throughout the way. The pure heather-scented air and the bright sunshine and the gentle canter of Minnie relieved his despondency after a while. He began to put questions concerning his new home and its inhabitant with greater interest and liveliness. "Is Wuthering Heights as pleasant a place as Thrushcross Grange?" he inquired, turning to take a last glance into the valley, whence a light mist mounted and formed a fleecy cloud on the skirts of the blue. "It is not so buried in trees," I replied, "and it's not quite so large, but you can see the country beautifully all around, and the air is healthier for you, fresher and drier. You will perhaps think the building old and dark at first, though it is a respectable house, the next best in the neighbourhood, and you will have such nice rambles on the moors. Hareton Earnshaw, that is Miss Cathy's other cousin, and so yours in a manner, will show you all the sweetest spots, and you can bring a book in fine weather and make a green hollow of your study. And now and then your uncle may join you for a walk. He does frequently walk out on the hills." "And what is my father like?" he asked. "Is he as young and handsome as Uncle?" "He's as young," said I, "but he has black hair and eyes and looks sterner, and he is taller and bigger altogether. He'll not seem to you so gentle and kind at first, perhaps, because it is not his way. Still, mind you be frank and cordial with him, and naturally he'll be fonder of you than any uncle, for you are his own." "Black hair and eyes," mused Hinton. "I can't fancy him. Then I am not like him, am I?" "Not much," I answered. "Not a morsel," I thought, surveying with regret the white complexion and slim frame of my companion, and his large languid eyes, his mother's eyes, save that, unless a morbid touchiness kindled them, a moment they had not a vestige of her sparkling spirit. "How strange that he should never come to see his mamma and me," he murmured. "Has he never seen me? If he have, I must have been a baby. I remember not a single thing about him." More pie. Cream pie. What could be better? What could be better? It's better. That's better. Oh, that's nice. Lovely. I approve. "Why, Master Linton," said I, 300 miles is a great distance, and 10 years seem very different in length to a grown-up person compared to what they do to you. It's probable Mr. Heathcliff proposed going from summer to summer, but never found a convenient opportunity, and now it is too late. Don't trouble him with questions on the subject, it will disturb him for no good. The boy was fully occupied with his own cogitations for the remainder of the ride, till he halted before the farmhouse garden gate. I watched to catch his impressions on his countenance. He surveyed the carved front and the low-bowed lattices, the straggling gooseberry bushes and crooked firs with solemn intentness, and then shook his head. His private feelings entirely disapproved of the exterior of his new abode, and he had sense to postpone complaining there might be compensation within. Before he dismounted, I went and opened the door. It was 6:30. The family had just finished breakfast, and the servant was clearing and wiping down the table. Joseph stood by his master's chair, telling me some tale concerning a lame horse, and Hareton was prepared for the hayfield. "Hello, Nelly," cried Mr. Heathcliff when he saw me. "I feared I should have come down to you and fetched my property myself. You've brought it, have you? Let's see what we can make of it." He got up and strode to the door. Hareton and Joseph followed in gaping curiosity. Poor Linton ran a frightened eye over the faces of the three. "Surely," said Joseph after a grave inspection, "he's swapped wi' ye master and yon's with his lass." Heathcliff, having stared his son into an egg, is it egg or og? I never know. A-G-U-E, agui, yeah. An egg of confusion, uttered a scornful laugh. "Oh, God, what a beauty! What a lovely, charming thing!" he exclaimed. "Haven't they reared it on snails and sour milk, Nelly? Oh, damn my soul, but that's worse than I expected, and the devil knows I was not sanguine." I bid the trembling and bewildered child get down and enter. He did not thoroughly comprehend the meaning of his father's speech, or whether it were intended for him. Indeed, he was not yet certain that the grim, sneering stranger was his father, but he clung to me with growing trepidation, and on Mr. Heathcliff taking a seat and bidding him come hither, he hid his face on my shoulder and wept. "Oh, tut, tut," said Heathcliff, stretching out a hand and dragging him roughly between his knees, and then holding up his head by his chin. "None of that nonsense. We're not going to hurt thee, Linton. Isn't that thy name? Thou art thy mother's child entirely. Where is my share in thee, bull and chicken?" He took off the boy's cap and pushed back his thick flaxen curls, felt his slender arms and his small fingers, during which examination Linton ceased crying, and lifting his great blue eyes to inspect the inspector. "Do you know me?" asked Heathcliff, having satisfied himself that the limbs were all equally frail and feeble. "No," said Linton, with a gaze of vacant fear. "You've heard of me, I dare say." "No," he replied again. "No? What a shame of your mother, never to waken your filial regard for me. You are my son, then, I'll tell you, and your mother was a wicked slut to leave you in ignorance of the sort of father you possessed. Now don't wince and colour up, though it is something to see you not have white blood. Be a good lad, for I'll do for you. Nelly, if you be tired, you may sit down. If not, get home again. I guess you'll report what you hear and see to the cipher at the Grange, and this thing won't be settled while you linger about it." Oh, Heathcliff, Heathcliff. What a man you are. If man thou dost be. That's nice. Still just warm. Delicious. "Well," replied I hope you'll be kind to the boy, Mr. Heathcliff, or you'll not keep him long, and he's all you have akin in the whole wide world that you will never even know. Remember?" "Oh, I'll be very kind to him. You needn't fear," he said, laughing. "Only nobody else must be kind to him. I'm jealous of monopolising his affection. And to begin my kindness, Joseph, bring the lad some breakfast. Hareton, you infernal calf, be gone to your work. Yes, Nell," he added when they had departed, "my son is prospective owner of this place, and I should not wish him to die till I was certain of being his successor. Besides, he's mine, And I want the triumph of seeing my descendant fairly lord of their estates, my child hiring their children to till their father's land for wages. That is the sole consideration which can make me endure the whelp. I despise him for himself and hate him for the memories he revives. But that consideration is sufficient. He's as safe with me, and shall be tenderly as carefully as your master tends his own. I shall have room upstairs furnished for him in handsome style. I've engaged a tutor also to come 3 times a week from 20 miles distant to teach him what he pleases to learn. I've ordered Hareton to obey him, and in fact I've arranged everything with a view to preserve the superior and the gentleman in him above his associates. I do regard, however, that he does little deserves the trouble. If I wished any blessing in the world, it was to find him a worthy object of pride, and I'm bitterly disappointed that the way-faced whining wretch, his own son. While he was speaking, Joseph returned, bearing a basin of milk porridge, and placed it before Linton. He stared round the homely mess with a look of aversion, and affirmed he could not eat it. I saw the old manservant shared largely in his master's scorn of the child, though he was compelled to retain the sentiment in his heart, because Heathcliff plainly meant his underlings to hold him in honour. "Cannot eat it," whispered he, peering in Linton's face, and subduing his voice to a whisper, for fear of being overheard. "But Mr. Hareton never ate out else, when you were a little un, and what were good enough for him's good enough for I rather think." "I shan't eat it," answered Linton snappishly. "Take it away." Joseph snatched up the food indignantly and brought it to us. "Is there out ale for victuals?" he asked, thrusting the tray under Heathcliff's nose. "What should ail them?" he said. "Ah," answered Joseph, "yon dinty chap says he cannot eat 'em, but I guess it's right his mother were just so. We were all too mucky to sort corn for mucking our breed." Let's have a little bit more. We're almost finished with this chapter, so I'll almost finish the pie. A little bit more cream, a little bit more cream. Look at that. Look at that. Eat it before it gets cold as well. So good. So good. "Don't mention his mother to me," said the master angrily. "Get him something that he can eat, that's all. What's his usual food, Nelly?" I suggested boiled milk or tea, and the housekeeper received instructions to prepare some. Come, I reflected. His father's selfishness may contribute to his comfort. He perceives his delicate constitution and the necessity of treating him tolerably. I'll console Mr. Edgar by acquainting him with the turn Heathcliff's humour has taken. Having no excuse for lingering longer, I slipped out while Linton was engaged in timidly rebuffing the advances of a friendly sheepdog. But he was too much on the alert to be cheated. As I closed the door, I heard a cry and a frantic repetition of the words, "Don't leave me! I'll not stay here! Don't leave me!" The latch was raised and fell. They did not suffer him to come forth. I mounted Minnie and urged her to a trot, and so my brief guardianship ended. End of chapter 20. What's going to happen? How badly is Heathcliff going to treat Linton? What's to become of him? We'll see. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to me. And don't forget to tap onto the playlist for Wuthering Heights, and you'll be able to see each one in order, so you won't be able to miss out on one. Just have a look at my playlist there, Wuthering Heights. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.